Your Salesforce reports are unreliable. Pipeline looks wrong, forecasts feel shaky, and managers keep asking for the real number. Reps are updating something somewhere, but the dashboard still does not match the conversation that happens in the room. So the obvious diagnosis is Salesforce is the problem. Bad tool, bad setup, bad data, maybe bad adoption. But in most companies, that is not the real diagnosis. The real diagnosis is that Salesforce is exposing a business operating problem that the company has not solved yet. The platform is usually not creating the chaos. It is revealing where trust broke, where process is vague, and where ownership never got settled. And if the business is not actually running inside of Salesforce, Salesforce cannot possibly produce numbers that the business will trust. I have seen versions of this pattern across different teams. The meeting gets serious, someone says the dashboard is off, and within 30 seconds, the room is running on a spreadsheet, an export, or a manager's private tracker instead. That is the tell, because the real system of record is not the one that you paid for. It's the one that the room trusts when they are under pressure. Here is what leaders usually see. The dashboard looks green, but the room does not believe it. Forecasts need adjustments. Pipeline reviews turn into reconciliation exercises. Managers ask reps to update Salesforce, but then they still bring a separate tracker to the sales meeting. Everyone says they want a single source of truth, but nobody behaves like Salesforce is it. The lazy explanation is familiar. Users are not adopting Salesforce. The admin did not set it up right. The reports need work. The data is bad. The tool is too rigid. Maybe it's time to rebuild or replace it. Some of those things can be partly true, but they are usually downstream truths, not the root diagnosis. Because Salesforce is not a magic source of clarity, it can only reflect the operating behavior around it. If the team manages deals somewhere else, Salesforce becomes a delayed copy of reality. If stage definitions are fuzzy, reports become mathematically precise and operationally meaningless. If managers do not trust the system in live conversations, the team learns very quickly that Salesforce is optional theater. So before you blame the tool, ask a harder question. What does the business trust when the decision gets serious? The spreadsheet is usually not the disease, it is the evidence. It tells you that the business found another place to do the real work. And underneath that, there are usually 3 structural problems wearing a Salesforce costume. The first is process. If nobody has clearly defined what each stage means, what must be true before a deal moves, or what information actually matters, Salesforce has nothing solid to enforce. One rep thinks that proposal means interest. Another one thinks that it means legal review. A manager thinks commit means this quarter. Finance thinks it means that the deal is signed. The platform is not producing bad data there. It is faithfully recording business ambiguity. The second one is ownership. Someone has to own the standards of the system in business terms. What counts as a real opportunity? What fields matter for forecasting purposes? Who decides whether a required field should even exist in the first place? Who has authority to say no to another one-off exception? The Salesforce admin can build and maintain the structure, but the admin should not be left holding business accountability without business authority. IT cannot fully own this. A consultant cannot permanently own it. And if no revenue leader owns the standards, the system will slowly get negotiated away, meeting by meeting. The third is trust. Data quality problems are usually trust problems with paperwork attached. When leaders do not trust what is in Salesforce, they create side systems. When managers coach from spreadsheets, reps learn the spreadsheets matter more. When teams see that exceptions always win, they stop treating Salesforce as operational reality. Then leadership looks at the dashboard and asks why the data is bad. But the data is often the residue of a deeper business decision. The organization has not agreed on how truth gets maintained. This is where companies start solving the wrong problem harder. They ask for a better dashboard. They add more required fields. They layer on automation. They buy an add-on. They talk about AI as if AI can rescue a workflow that the business already does not trust. Or they decide the real answer is to just replace Salesforce. Those moves can feel responsible because they are visible. They sound decisive. They create motion. But if the underlying issue is unclear process, weak ownership, or broken trust, those fixes usually just reorganize the confusion. A cleaner dashboard does not fix a system that nobody trusts. More required fields do not fix a process nobody has agreed on. Automation does not fix an operating model that still depends on side trackers. A new platform does not fix leaders who have never settled on what reality should look like inside the system. Sometimes Salesforce really does need cleanup or simplification or redesign. But a lot of quote unquote Salesforce problems are actually business discipline problems that got expensive enough to show up in software. That is why the cost is bigger than just messy reporting. Forecasting becomes guesswork. Marketing cannot prove what influenced revenue. Customer handoffs lose context because key information lives inside of private notes or private spreadsheets. Executives stop trusting the numbers. And then admins get blamed for symptoms that they did not have authority to fix. Teams start arguing about which version of the pipeline is real instead of deciding what the business should do next. And once the mistrust settles in, every future Salesforce investment gets harder. Because now the company is not only dealing with system problems, it's dealing with trust debt. So here is the test. In your next pipeline review, run the meeting from Salesforce and nothing else. No spreadsheet, no PowerPoints, no exports of any kind. No, let me pull up my version. Just the live CRM. Then watch what breaks. If reps cannot speak about their deals from what is on the opportunity record, the data is not where the business needs it. If the manager cannot run the meeting without switching tabs, Salesforce is not the operating system. If leadership immediately asks for the spreadsheet has more trust than the CRM. That does not tell you who to blame. It tells you what kind of diagnosis you actually need. The fix starts with business decisions, not platform drama. Stop blaming the technology. First, define the process in plain language. What does each stage mean? What evidence must exist before a deal can move forward? What information is actually necessary for forecasting, for handoffs, for management review? If the business cannot answer those questions clearly, Salesforce cannot answer them on its behalf. Second, assign business ownership. Name a specific leader or role who owns CRM standards in business terms, not system terms. That person should be able to define what good data means, what reviews should happen in the system, what exceptions are allowed, and when the company is drifting back into spreadsheet mode. The Salesforce admin should be a partner in that structure, not the default container for unresolved business decisions. Third, tighten the workflow around the decisions that matter. Do not make everything required. Make the critical things unavoidable. If a field in Salesforce supports forecasting, customer transition, revenue attribution, or leadership review, it belongs in the workflow. If no one uses it to make a decision, stop pretending as if it matters. And most importantly, move the live operating conversation back into Salesforce. If managers coach from Salesforce data, the data gets better. If leadership reviews from the Salesforce screens, trust can be rebuilt. If the team sees that the real meeting is happening within the Salesforce data, Salesforce stops feeling like administrative residue and starts becoming operational again. Salesforce might need work, but before you rebuild it or replace it or bury it under more reporting, diagnose the problem at the business level first. Because Salesforce is not the business, it is the mirror. And if the mirror is showing side systems, vague processes, weak ownership, and low trust, replacing the mirror will not fix the operating model. Start with the meeting test. Open Salesforce, stay in Salesforce, and watch what breaks during the meeting. That will tell you whether you have a platform problem, a process problem, an ownership problem, or maybe a trust problem. And that is a much better diagnosis than Salesforce is broken.